It's hard not to get goosebumps, right? There's no regulators. You just want to pick up the drumsticks.
Yeah.
Flip the table.
This is... Oh, you got this here. Yeah, it's like an iconic song. Like that intro.
Why isn't this something Pat could put on repeat? This whole out, like if you did the essentials of the wildflower and stuff, like you'd be hard pressed not to have a good workout to that.
Are you referencing our last episode?
I might be referencing the music choices at Iron Trim, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Pat Lowe Sr. Just in case anyone's listening.
Little Easter egg.
We that's a pretty cool throwback to episode 10, the last one, because we're on episode 11 now. So that's.
But what gym owner is? I was thinking about. Is it unique to Pat that if you're in an old school gym and you roll up to the counter, especially if you're not a seasoned gym member, and say, "Hey man, let's play a little something else," like he's gonna tell you to go f yourself. I don't care where you are. So maybe it's not unique to senior.
His sound's pretty unique.
Like, has anyone here ever asked another gym owner to change the music?
No.
But in fairness,
get it off.
Well, but in your case, you've actually got a speaker that's over going on that other guy's setup, where his connection on the Bluetooth is spotty at times, right? So the music plays and then it cuts out, right?
Like we had the...
That's not your thing, is it? That's his.
That's his, yeah.
It's a bad connection.
Yeah, I think that's just something with theirs, but...
Where's this at?
At Scheer's.
Yeah.
So we just before... We're 2 minutes into episode 11, and everyone's listening going, what the fuck are these guys rambling about? So just to bring it back, we just couldn't contain ourselves for those that are just tuning in. But we had to keep it going from before this thing started, and we were just talking about music, and I guess it'll come into like rituals, tradition, preparation, and all that for training.
The music's part of it.
Yeah, no, exactly, for athletics. So here we are, opening the Echo Chamber, Old Guard Athletics. Like I said, episode 11, we crossed the milestone last one. And we have got the OGA crew here minus one person who decided that Tony Robbins was more important than hanging out with us. So that's Mike Nederhoff, for those who don't know. But we got.
I believe he's known as Chisel in his former life.
Well, if you look at him, even today, you look at him, he looks like he's like Chisel, right? But we've got a more than willing and qualified replacement here, former guest on the podcast, Troy Scheer. So thanks for joining in. And those that can't see, we got the other three of us. So it's Beavis and John Murphy and Jon Somers. So we're back at it, and I think, just picking up on that ramble to kick it off, one of the things that we were talking about before the podcast was what would be covered today, and Troy kind of got it going, then Jay jumped on it, and John, and even Mike when he was traveling. But when you have people, I guess, like us in this community where you're just somehow ingrained, wired in with you can't turn it off. And then I think you asked the question is, even though that's probably baked in genetically or psychologically, are there things that we still all have that trigger us to perform at a certain level, like even though we're kind of revving already? And then I guess that leads to also what do other people outside of this table do for that. So that's like just actual preparation, rituals, traditions, superstitions, even it could be some of the cultural elements that people follow. So I think it's a pretty cool topic, because I was thinking about it after you mentioned it, and then I thought, Jesus, I got some weird shit that I do.
Well, imagine that's what I was thinking about when I'm in, because I'm training these days by myself at home a lot. And you think if I was walking someone through my routine, what questions would they ask? And there is a couple things I do. They'd say, why are you doing it that way? And some of these things evolve, because as we age, we get injuries. And maybe I'm not, like when I'm watching Dr. Mike Israetel explain the optimal way to lift on Instagram. It's like, well, he's talking to a 20-year-old bodybuilder, and my shoulders sound like fucking popcorn. So not everything's optimal, but something's better than nothing. So it's like you might look and say, why are you doing that exercise in particular? Why are you doing that exercise that way? Which is maybe become part of a ritual, which is another subset of the topic we're going to. But then there's other things that I do to get myself mentally ready, because I think we all know the lost sleep, over missed reps, or like just
there's a T-shirt coming. Eh?
Yeah,
that is like the bestseller.
But that's not unique to me, because if you guys go a week without training, like you feel shitty and you get like, I got to do something.
But you have a process, right? Like, I think that's the thing that you've learned. Your body at this stage in the game, at our age and everything else, you have a process that you have to know, okay, I need to get at this point, this is the series or this is the pattern that I've learned works most efficiently with my body.
So
and that's how you build up to that kind of that rev position where you keep it in gear.
The part I wanted, because when you mentioned that, and you mentioned this before, to break it down, because you had both, like the mental and the physical preparation. Like you talk about this process.
Yeah.
Like because you work with elite MMA. For those that don't know, you work with elite MMA fighters plus beginners, intermediates, and all that. So, do you like look at those people and try to process or try to understand their process where mentally they have to do something at which. Then there's a physical part, right? Like preparation isn't just woven into one stream. You have two actually, right?
Well, I think that most people will say that. I think we get when we put in our work, that confidence carries over when we go into our sport.
Okay.
Right. But then there's a lot of people that they have that constant, especially in fighting. I would say like that's obviously my area, but you have that doubt. There's that constant self-doubt. Did I do enough, or did I? But I mean, same thing. Powerlifting, anything like that. There could be a straw here that breaks the camel's back, and what do I have to psychologically do to make me not focus on that at the worst time? Like going through, like you'd have that process. Like when he was fighting, you know what I mean. Part of the ritual is taping the hands. Listening to that playlist in your head, the camaraderie with the guy, just having that social connection with your kind of crew beforehand.
It was always that was like the togetherness from the weigh-in, especially in MMA where it's a 24-hour previous to the fight weigh-in.
Yeah. Like
you're together for the weigh-in. Often we're traveling, so we're together for the ride, and you get the confidence. Well, you get to see what other guys are doing, and then as time went on, I only had the 2 fights, but I did that a little bit of the continuous stuff. But like some guys get really amped up, and then you see like that didn't work for me. I burned myself out adrenal fatigue before I even got in the ring. So the first fight fortunately ended short. I knew to going into it that there was but that's a different ritual that's unique to each fighter, right?
Yeah.
Like some guys are just fucking that day they're like this the whole time, and I just carries right into the ring.
You gotta learn.
And I just.
And what were you?
I need to calm and chill out, and then say it's like so powerlifting or whatever. It's like if we put to exactly what you said, if we put in that work leading up to the fight or the lift, my mindset going into that last fight was I've done everything up until this point that I can possibly do. There's nothing I can really do today that is going to make me prepared other than get in there and just go do what I've done. And the other thing was I always told myself, because of the steel sharpens steel, no one was getting in the ring that was going to be harder on me than Scotty and Warren and Jose and the rest of the guys in the ring. And I just got in and I'm like, let's just go put on a show.
Yeah.
And that was that was my, had I continued fighting, I think that would have been a theme. But I borrowed that to going into anything else. It's like the day of, we're talking about preparation for competition now, but we're also getting into what our daily training is, right?
Yeah.
Is like as well. But like as far as a competition thing, it's like by the time you show up at the lift or the competition, in my mind, you should be ready. Like if you're sitting there, what can I do right now? You're probably a little late to the game.
But I want to just, because this is really cool. We got the right people in here to have this conversation. Because I think about it, part A, because I'm learning a little bit of this stuff at your gym now, right?
Yeah.
On the jiu-jitsu side. So the preparation you talk about beforehand that helps you mentally prepare. It's one thing, though, to go against another person, because that's a variable that you have to react to.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, the person could be better than you and you put everything into it, and now you're still sinking, right? whereas when you talk, John, like about your background specifically in the powerlifting, it's innate. That's the word. Innate object. It's not going to bite you or attack you or anything.
No. Yeah.
But it's physically sitting there, and it's either going to move because you do it or it doesn't. So I'm just wondering, like psychologically,
there's going to be a difference.
Yeah, like what is the nuance there where you prepare and that thing is sat there and it has beaten you, like it hasn't moved every time your entire life. It's never moved.
Well, did what I just said resonate with you as far as powerlifting goes?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand versus.
Like, would you say the statement I said that in my mind, by the time you show up for the day of the competition, if you're trying to figure out that day what you can do to improve yourself, you're too late? Would you agree with that or not?
Yeah. So when I was young, a million years ago, when I went into a competition, I never thought about it. I thought, and I don't know why, I thought, yeah, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to win. I didn't always win, but that's how I thought. But I like Troy's framing of doubt. You know, a healthy amount of doubt drives you.
Well, that's a big thing. Like, but I see it all. Like, and we're talking about MMA fighters, but I even seen it. Like, I had a lot. Like, I had a young competition team, and these kids bust their butt to get on this, and I had kids on there that, you know, that they get up there and they get in front of people and they would just be psychologically in the gym, or certain guys, we call them gym fighters. They're gods. They can do whatever they want to whoever they want, whenever they want. Yeah. They go into a competition and everyone asks, like, what happened? Like, where did that guy go that beats me up on a regular basis and he doesn't show up? And it's just because they're not in their comfort zone. They're not in their house. They're not in their thing. So that was a big thing for me when I was training a lot of, say, this young group. We called it like the super winning attitude team. It was like the SWAT team. And then these kids would come in and and that was kind of when I was...
How old?
They would range anywhere from, like, because I'd have kids, 2 kids almost try to get them from most age categories. So I had about 15 kids on my squad.
Up to what age?
Up to about 14, 15 were the oldest kids.
So pretty impressionable ages, though.
Yeah, but they had to do tryouts. It wasn't just because they were in the school, because they had special uniforms and everything else that they earned the right to get. And then they had to train extra hours. They had to involve themselves extra and put out more time than everybody else. But I found that, like, a lot of them, I got into that. That's when I was probably getting into it most myself, even, was the whole, because I felt competing, I was surrounded by so many really talented, like, senior guys that it was just like, man, I was like the elephant with the rope around my ankle. I don't see myself being able to beat some of these guys because they're just so good and they're so committed and so disciplined at what they're doing. And I'm like a teenager, you know, coming up and coming up, and I'm just like, I get beat down here, and then I go to the tournament, it's even worse. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, when you make that transition, then you finally get a kind of a footing, and then you start doing really well. And then it was like, oh, now I get moved to the black belt division, and it was like, oh, now I'm in there with all those guys. Like, these are the guys, like, you know, Al Labal and Dwayne Stewart and all these guys. Like, yeah, these guys are all, like, they're phenomenal. Like, multiple-time grand championship winners and everything else. And all of a sudden you're like, well, this is my first tournament as a black belt, and I'm standing out there.
And as brown belts and underlings, we watch those guys as black belts for years. And then you get, I'm kind of remembering how you bring it up, like, and then you get your black, and you're like, yeah, we're not in the under, like,
you're not in Kansas
now
anymore.
We're in with those guys.
Yeah, but that's how you learn. You have that apprenticeship where you guys are on the sidelines watching these guys, and then you're slowly...
Yeah, and you're working with them and stuff like that, but I think I very much had even like I had like a psychological crutch. Like, you know what I mean? That it was hard for me to make that leap. I had the physicality and I had the tools, but I didn't have that, you know, well, I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to do that. So I took it upon myself, because I think I did a couple tournaments, and I just was like, that was terrible. And I was like, I'm embarrassed. I was just like, I carry my dad's name, I carry the club's name, and I just felt like I just got smoked, like, by these guys. But then again, granted, like, these guys were like senior guys from even other clubs that were like, they're always in the finals. And it was just, you're lucky your draw. You're in there with them. So it was like, I got to do something, right? So then I just started doing, like I said, I started doing my own training on my own. And then I found a lot of stuff on psychology and about setting up rituals kind of and patterns and how you get yourself. And the one that I found that worked really well for me, and it doesn't work well for everybody, but was the whole self-talk, right? Like doing that.
Diego Sanchez. Yes.
Yes. Not quite there, but I definitely was into.
Who's been arrested, by the way?
Surprise.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But it just allowed me to kind of get into. I had the whole thing like when I competed or whatever. I stepped into the ring, and the first thing would go into my head was, "This is my house. This is mine. You want it? You better come and take it." And that was my mindset. And then once I started doing that, it was like I changed. It was like this. All of a sudden, this thing happened. Suddenly, it was like you kind of leave, and it was like, you're like, all the bullshit worked. Holy, like
that's not bullshit. As you think, you will talk, and as you talk, you will act.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. At first, it was just kind of like I wasn't sure. I was just looking for.
And you discovered this on your own, or did you have a conversation with your dad or somebody to give you?
No, like it was more so. I talked to a couple of the other.
How long ago was this when you started doing this? How many years?
It was in my 20s, probably.
Yeah. So what? Like in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah. And there was just like
no
a couple.
internet.
There was
no internet.
and there was none of that psychological training really.
Yeah.
It was just
There were no coaches.
You did it on your own.
Yeah, but I found some books though. I did.
Which books?
There was one called.
Not the internet.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's not on the internet.
Not in your Kindle?
Mind Games was one of the ones that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
And very simple book, but it laid the process. So then when I started doing this team, I just took those applications, and then that's when I discovered, like I mentioned before, some of the stuff from the All Blacks and how they went. So they were all. It was kind of I was trying to figure out how I could weave this stuff together. But then, like I said, it was a matter of figuring out, like you said, some guys, you have to be in their ear and be like, this guy, if you don't take him out, you're going to have, and they have to get out. Other people would be like, no, just relax. Because they'd be so high strung, they'd get in there, they'd be so exhausted by the time they got in there, they would be done.
Hey, Jay.
Right?
Well, so you talk about the doubt, like to go into the healthy self-doubt. That was nightmare for me, because I think, like, I would have the doubt and then I'd be like, Troy, okay, the day of, right? I'm like, do you think, okay, should I this? And I think I did that to Al, like big time in the River City Rumble. I was
you
like,
were training lots with Scotty then, so
yeah, well, he was exhausting. Having we're talking about Scott Richardson, phenomenal pro athlete, martial artist from Scheer's, MMA fighter. I traveled with him while he was a pro, and he was. I think a few times I took him to do weigh-ins so that you didn't have to go on the Friday. Like, I think I went with him and Jose or something. But he was exhausted. The point was, you're spending 24 hours, and he was that for 24 hours. Like, every time. He needed
reassurance.
And he needed, okay, man, whatever. And, like, he was good when he got in the ring.
Once he got in the ring, you would...
It would drain the energy out of you.
Oh, well, and I knew that if I was doing that, which I was prone to when I'm nervous, it was, like, just... It exhausted me, and I knew I had to shut the fuck up and have confidence in everything that led up to it before that nervousness. Actually, it just popped in my head. I did one of my first demonstration skydives into a group of people was at the Avenue U pitch, rugby pitch.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if is that still that clubhouse there. It was new when
no, it's at English Crescent now by the.
So we're by the Penn.
So you're talking about over by Holiday Park Golf Course?
Yeah.
No,
so I jumped. I did a skydive.
You landed there?
I landed there, and and then I think and then I played. Like, I think. And, so we opened that game, but like the people I was skydiving with, I was nervous, and I was in the plane. And like it's like I've done 1,000 skydives.
But you guys do your rugby boots on when you jumped, or
the cleats? Yeah, no, I had to slide. The kind of parachutes were like you slide out. You don't want the cleats. You want curling sliders, not the cleats. But like my coach, he was like, "Dude, shut the fuck up! Like you've done this 1,000 times." But I was just like da 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 da. Well, just the uprights and the blah blah blah. And she's like, "You know how to do this? Like just shut up." And
but see, that's where your coach knows how to have to handle each individual.
So that was kind of like just you have to figure that out, and even for me, like, I guess I was fairly young at the time when I was doing it, but I was starting to figure out. And I'll mention one guy that you'll probably meet at the school there is Blair Turnquist. He's one of our black belts, and not only in the martial arts program, but he's also one of my black belts in jiu-jitsu as well. But he was this kid that was super confident as far as getting out there and doing kata, and he just had, like, just totally pumped. Come to sparring, he would just be like an emotional wreck, and he had a real hard time to it. So it was like, okay, I got to figure out something like to get his mind off of this and give him some confidence. And then so I ended up calling it the T2000. Like, it was like the BT2000. So you're like the Terminator. So when you're going to go in there and you're going to go in there, and so to this day, that's his fight name. Like, when he started fighting MMA and everything else, he was, so if you go and look on him Instagram,
I'm surprised to hear he was timid like that, because he's such a killer.
Well, that's what I meant. But he was like 7 at the time, and I remember I was like, okay, and we took his helmet and I wrote it on his helmet, and I gave him, we had these little pep talks, and like I said, like,
you gave him a mindset.
Yeah, I gave him a mindset. It was almost like a persona that this is who you become when you get into there, and this is what you're going to do, right? Like, and there's a lot of guys that do that. Like, I mean, you could call it a pro wrestling gimmick, like when guys talk in third person and everything else. But he had that, and once he started doing that, the crying and the nerves and the, what I mean, totally disappeared. And that took him all the way through up into his teenage years. And then, like I said, like, he's still at the club now. He still trains at the club now. He's one of the teachers there. And like I said, but he competed both amateur and pro MMA as well. And just, you know what I mean? And a great mindset. Like, you know what I mean? And now I can see that how he passes that on. Like, when you works with his students as well.
One of the things I want to build on this, because it reminded me, I think, it was a text you sent to, or someone sent it through to the group. Just it was around, like, our generation trying to figure out stuff without the internet, right? And so what I think is it doesn't make us better, but we had a unique upbringing. So, because what I'm thinking about is you made a difference in Blair's life. Like, you made a difference because at 7 years old, you had an influence. And so I'm just thinking about our generation. Somehow we flipped the switch, right? Like, to allow us to create these patterns and all these types of things. But we didn't have coaches, and we didn't have, I guess, the resources that seem to be around today.
Yeah.
So, like, if we just went around, I'm interested in the stories from all 4 of us, I guess. But, like, maybe start with you, and then we'll finish Troy with you. But
I want to hear about you too.
No,
you actually haven't shared as much.
No, fair enough. I will, but
over the
just,
last 11 podcasts.
But because you're the most experienced of us, you're sitting at home, knowing that you're revved up, you want to be athletic, you all this. You go on and you lift the most weight. Like, this is what I find fascinating. It's one thing to beat up another person because maybe you can get in their head. Yeah. Right? Maybe technically the guy's better, but you get in their head. Something that weighs 680 pounds or something like that.
Wasn't that much.
Well, whatever. What was it? It was 600 pounds.
551.
Well, okay, 600 pounds.
We round up in
we round up, but also because you weighed what, like 148. Yeah, exactly. So 600. Shit. It's 600 pounds, man. So my point is, the point is, you're all by yourself, and there's 500 and some pounds, and at your peak you're 140 some pounds, but somewhere along the line you got yourself into this pattern of process and rituals and triggering and all this kind of stuff to go and move something that, like, literally one person in 100 million will ever experience. Like, we all have had physical interaction with people, but to move that kind of weight, nobody really experiences that. So, like, by yourself, you had no books. How did you do that? Because I think where I'm going with this is the young people today. I think that's what they're interested in, because they've got huge resources at their disposal, but I'm not sure that they can decipher what works. Whereas
what doesn't work. Yeah.
Whereas,
it's a lot of noise. Right.
Whereas someone like Troy and Jay and yourself, you guys had to figure this out on your own, and then you have a trail of impact on people's lives, and it's real. It's not infomercial Instagram. So I'm just curious, like, how did you do that?
Well, that was 1986 in Gull Lake. That was a long time ago.
I know.
Honestly,
longer than that, because you got it started somewhere.
yeah, that's true. In grade 9, which was 19.
Yeah, do the math. No, seriously.
1978.
Fuck.
Anyways, there was nothing except for Muscle and Fitness, and then
Which is a magazine. Most people don't even know that.
yeah, and I remember ordering Franco Colombo's deadlift workout out of I bought that at Nichols Gym a long time ago.
He was a beast.
Yeah.
I mean, for those who don't know bodybuilding, most do, but Franco was Arnold Schwarzenegger's best friend and a Mr. Olympia contestant who won as well. So he was extremely strong from Sicily.
Yeah.
And he was built like you, actually, same height, eh? Pretty much.
Yeah, except even better.
Wow.
And then there was Powerlifting USA, and that was it.
So you started by ordering stuff that you saw in magazines.
Yeah, reading the magazines. Yeah.
But you had to. But the point is, it wasn't like Amazon delivered it. You no, like explain the process.
Well, yeah,
it was the little coupon ad, right? No, come on, just explain
fill
it.
it out, put a check in it, mail it with a stamp. Had to lick the stamp.
This is
a very analog way of getting information.
When you got those first, maybe a program that you ordered or sent away from, how did you like implement it? You know, like, because I mean, I'm terrible for, you know, sometimes like we were joking about Scotty, how he'd be like ask you for questions. I would be that way. Like sometimes, like it's like I get, oh well, this is the new thing, and then go, and then someone, oh well, that's the new thing. Well, I should be, and I didn't have that much as what we have now. Like now, it just blows my mind. But how did you draw from that, or were you stuck in a position where it was like, well, this is the only blueprint I have, so I better go by what they say?
Yeah, I would use that blueprint. There wasn't many. There was a couple, and just kind of blindly went about it. Like, you know, the amount of information, helpful information about sleep, psychology, nutrition, all that stuff. You know, I kind of wish I'd had that back then, but
there was nothing.
Yeah, there was zero. So, you know, part of it was I had a little bit of information. Part of it was you just kind of blindly kind of went along. And
did it give weights to suggest that you deadlift, or did it just said do X for whatever weight you can do by 3 reps or 5, or did it give a rep range or a weight range?
The initial ones were, here's what I do for my 700-pound deadlift, and then it became percentages, you know, and then a pyramid scheme, and you know, eventually it went into cycling your training and all that, but that was a long time coming.
But just so you think about this, but for those that don't know, I mean, again, I just repeat this because people may not have heard your background, but you know, you ended up with the provincial record, which is probably on a national.
It's retired now.
Probably barely, but and it probably is close to a national record. So like, it's phenomenal. But that's just like kind of doing the training. But like today we're talking about the physical preparation, but mental. So you're tucked away in this lifestyle at that time where people actually looked down on weight training. They thought it was going to stunt your growth. Maybe it did. Maybe if you hadn't done that, you might have been 6'3". But so how did you, the doubt or the confidence, like we were talking earlier, that all of us at this table here have probably been accused of being reasonably confident.
I was
politically correct.
Arrogant. I would say from what I'm hearing almost, though, I think that would have been, he had the confidence. I think he had an air of confidence with himself. Like for myself, like I said, I didn't feel like I had that. I had to find it. Whereas it sounds like he was one of those guys that basically goes, oh, hey, do you want to do that? And you're like,
how am I getting the job done? Well, right here's a magazine. I'm going to fucking do that.
This is cool.
So that's not
a different, totally opposite
point.
ends of the spectrum. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Part of it's being young, not thinking about it, like, okay, I'll do it. And part of it was innate. It's just like, I'm gonna try that. I'm not gonna worry about it.
You have nothing to lose kind of mentality. Like
you don't sound like you were over-analyzing very much.
No,
right? You're just saying, how much can, all right, let's go.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know why I was like that, but I was.
Did you think that was influence from parents, coaches, or anything that you had coming up from doing other sports? Or?
You know, my mom and dad were very mellow and laid back and easygoing. So yeah, I think most of it was just the way I was wired.
You're Irish.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, but there's some aspect to it. But yeah, I mean, maybe just before we move on from this, Troy raised a super cool point, right? Like, we all have personality traits or genetics that give us a different starting point, but we've all kind of ended up at the same place. So our journey to get here has all been different. And so psychologically, how we've built to this, and we've all been called probably confident or cocky or whatever.
Arrogant asshole.
Arrogant asshole. Well, no, I get that too. Dick, whatever. But the journey is different for all of us, right? I just think you should take the opportunity to explain just what you lived for people, because there's just not a lot of people at 61. Like, people don't believe he's 61. Right? I mean, it's something to just explain, tell people, right or wrong, but it's just a really, really unique way to have lived.
Yeah. No, I was just wired that way. I've always trained. Always wanted other people to train. And yeah, it was just the way I was, still am.
Well, and it sounds like you found the way to get the job done any
I think
which
I know
way.
what it is. It's the accolade. Because when you have someone of your size of what you were, and you move that weight, you have some big dudes standing around going, holy fuck, I can't even move that.
He was the
that guy did it.
Right.
And when you
Fucking
hear that
Anatoly.
guy, that come out of the corner of his mouth, or you hear them whispering on the side, that must feel like you're like a giant at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
so
got
I
some of
think
that.
it does feed the ego, and I think like that's why a lot of times guys get. I mean, when we get into competition, we do it as a challenge initially, but then I think when you start doing well,
You hear it.
then that kind of good or bad, that ego comes in a little bit, and it's just like, but then that's what takes the baton next. And then that baton just got past the ego. Ego takes you so far. And then when you start realizing, oh, someone breathing on the back of my neck, they're catching up to me, then that becomes kind of like, now you got to become the Jedi Master in a sense, you know what I mean? Now I have to be a little bit more creative on my process. Now I've got to use the knowledge that I have to get me that one leapfrog ahead of the young gun who's coming up behind me. Like, that's how I felt like after it was like, because otherwise it's like it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, even for yourself, I can imagine there's someone who wanted your spot on the squad all the time. And if you had a bad day, you looked over to him and he's like, yes. You know what I mean? Whether, everyone wants it, like, because I mean, I understand, like, for like in a rugby squad, like, I mean, those are like, you get that spot, you protect it, like, and you want to hold on to it because you want to ride that continual rush and wave and be able to play and not be sitting on the bench saying, oh, I wish I was in there, I could have did that, oh, I would have made that play, I would have been able to do that. You don't want to have that, because that would just drive me nuts. I can't even imagine, like, in that context. That's probably why I didn't really ever take to team sports very much, right? Like, I would be just like, ugh. So like,
I'd say I didn't really thought of that part of separating, the mental part for team versus individual. Is that that you could just get stuck and not participate even though you want to so badly in a team.
yeah.
Right, just because of how it stacks up.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas
You still have to go to training. and
Exactly.
grind.
Whereas
Yeah,
an
you gotta-
individual, if I want to go and fight, I can fight. I can probably fight any. Right.
Yeah.
You're not going to do well.
Doesn't
but
always
you,
do well.
You
Yeah.
do well, but you can
I've
do
seen
the
that
activity.
lots.
Right. You can try.
Yeah.
Whereas if you really, really love a sport, that's a team sport. You just stuck riding
Yeah.
the bench. It must be just demoralizing.
So whether in training or competition, did you have any little
Yeah.
rituals that were like, did you talk to the weight? Okay, fuck, leg weight, whatever, like anything? Did you clap your hands together? Let's go. A breath, a certain way of breathing.
Yeah.
I don't
You
know.
might not even recognize what you did.
I bet you do. I bet, well, because there's going to be a pattern. If I watch you do it 3 times, I'd be able to pick something up.
Yeah.
Come on.
I
Inside,
honestly, I never,
inside,
I never thought about it. I just did it. Because in competitions, you'd see everything from one end of the spectrum to the other. Some guys, they'd be sniffing ammonia,
The smell,
and then
yeah,
the
salts.
guy was tightening up their belt, and they'd like literally, I saw two guys. One guy was slapping the other guy, and he just about got in a fight on the platform. Because he's trying to rev him up, but he was pounding the shit out of him.
Trying to get the adrenaline done.
Yeah. And it was just over the top. And there's other guys that just do it.
How were your nerves before the competition? Did you have to do anything to combat nerves?
No, a little nervous, but honestly, again, you know, it sounds silly, but I never thought
Just
about it.
fucking went and
I'm
did it.
here,
A lot
I'm
of
going to
people
do it.
puke.
It's already got beta blockers built into your the self-doubt.
Yeah.
Did you so because it's again an inanimate object, did you in the training when you had like a personal best that you were trying to do in competition, how did you approach that? Like how many times did you lift a personal best? Meaning, for those that don't know, you'd be in a competition and you were going to lift or attempt to lift a weight that's never been lifted by you before, right? So that feeling, everything psychologically, emotionally, physically, it's just going to be a brand new experience in front of the world. How many times did you do that, do you figure, in your competitions?
I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times.
You said 3 or 4 PRs?
Yeah.
And so was it basically you pretty confident you were going to pull it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, honestly,
So you probably developed, though, whether you realize it or not, because that's one of the underlying things, whether it would be rugby, or whether it be powerlifting, whether it be skydiving or fighting or whatever, you probably developed very efficient technique for your build, stature, and that, whether you realize it or not, is a process in itself. Because you can see some people lifting and they're like, you're waiting for something to snap because it just does not look natural. Whereas when you see someone who's confident underneath a heavy weight, it's like the way they kind of adjust and articulate their structure to take that weight. So you were probably doing that ritualistically without even knowing you were doing it, locking yourself into those positions to do your lifts on a regular basis. Because I mean, I think I do that even now, but it's because if I don't do it, things fall off.
I have a quick question for you about that. No question away, but I learned something from learning archery, and you went through this not a little more recently than I did, though. The idea with archery is like to hold the bow a certain way, acquire your target, draw it, and have what we call the shot process, right? Like everything from drawing the amount of tension on the back of a compound bow, that front grip, where your hand, where the strings touch in your face, where your eye, your head tilt, where the pin is, because you can never hold a rifle or a bow dead calm. So, and kind of getting the surprise shot. So there's a little bit academic, but there's a process that is generally accepted. Most archers should do a certain way, but we all put a tweak on it. But having learned that process and how important it was for consistency in shooting has made me tighten up a bit of my lifting game and probably affects other parts of my life. Did you notice like how important that process, or did you kind of know that already through the jiu-jitsu game?
Maybe it was indirectly when I started doing archery. Like, I mean, really, like, you were my archery coach. Like, so I learned from you. Like, I had done a little bit like I did before. But that was like a recurve, and it was like nothing. But when I got with the compound bow, like, I mean, you kind of gave me your thought process and everything, and I used that initially, and then, you know what I mean, then you start resourcing different things, and then you just kind of find your own pattern or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't really know if it happened, it'd be like, you know, John, like, I think it was subconsciously I had a systematic approach that I ended up going, and then that's like I even kind of went to using different gear and stuff because I found it complemented my process of the way I have.
Even though you and I are kind of, you learned a little bit alongside me as far as archery goes, it's what's amazing about you is, and I was thinking about this too, about how I think we talked about when you were the guest, you watching, you know, the training that the group was doing, and then bringing those very same ideas back. That you and I went through, like I was never telling you what gear you should use, but you're also really good at going online and learning and watching other archers and doing whatever. Like if you looked at my gear and his gear, it is fucking not the same at all. And it's not a criticism, because it should be what, like, you are super comfortable with what you have, but it's just it's just neat that you had a different path of what was comfortable for your mind and your body and yet we use almost the same shot process with this very, very different gear. It'd be too weird to get into what's different about it, but for everything from our sights to the way the bows work and stuff like that are fairly unique to us. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting point that we're doing the same job and arrived at a different place gear wise.
But I think you probably do that whether, like you said, we don't realize subconsciously how those processes are happening. But our general everyday life is probably affected by our process, and we have our, like we were just talking today. We had lunch today, and I was saying like, oh man, my body almost, and it shouldn't, but my body almost dreads the weekends, because the weekends the only part I have no control over, because it's like during the week when I'm in my regular program, I know I've got to be here, I got to do this, and I have it's my ritual throughout the week, where I lift, when I train, when everything that I do, I teach at this time. This is when I spend the time with my kids.
And when the kids are in school, like for me too, it's autopilot.
Yeah, so you've got all this stuff, but then on the weekend, then it's like, oh, there's a wedding, or there's this happening, or this, and then it's just, and I just feel like on the 3 days that most people look forward to relax and have R&R, those are like kind of the most exhausting days that I have, right? Like I literally, like, it's kind of like, oh, I can't wait till Monday hits.
Because you're out of the routine.
Yeah, I'm out of the routine, but that's just how my body works.
It's like the way you're wired.
Yeah, like it's just weird.
What are I know you put thought into this before we sat down today. I bet you have some rituals that have worked for you pre-game, pre-practice,
same underwear
in rugby, and then like rubbing Zen on your shins. Like everybody no, but like as well as lifting. Like I'm curious about some of your lifting nuances.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it, and like all of us, we've done different athletics, and so then I think the one theme is I'm like all of you guys, where I've always, I don't know, maybe for the average person, put like probably an abnormal amount of thought into getting ready for an athletic endeavor. Like it's not just kind of just roll up and do it. Like, you know, I start to think about it. What am I trying to achieve? And even if it's learning something. So I think it probably starts with that. Like you say, you're just kind of wired that way to be maybe thoughtful about what you want to get out of it or to experience from it. I think that's the point. Like if I decide to do an athletic thing, I want to experience it at the most that I can. Like I don't like participation just to kind of dabble. Like if I do something, I want to experience it as much as I can. So that's probably the first part. Then then as you get deeper into the rabbit hole on some of these things, like you start developing routines from other people, listening, learning. Way more resources today with the internet now. Like for example, with this jiu-jitsu thing, my algorithm on Instagram is now like blowing up. I click on these things, and then I send them to Jason, and he laughs and stuff. But you know, like back to when in the 70s and 80s, growing up, it was the same thing. Magazines on a monthly basis. That's where you went to get something. In my case, it was the gym and the bodybuilding, and also it was people that I admired, that I looked at, that were older than me. So we take the piss out of Pat, who's the owner of Ironworks, but you know, he was someone that I really, really looked up to, like, you know, like almost like a superhero. And then there were other guys from the generation too. So all that kind of formulated it. And then like, as you get going, like your personality does become part of it. And I was thinking about my, I guess, maturity over the years, about how I've changed. And I used to be way more amped up for activities. So my sport originally was football. And, you know, I guess, I mean, for a midget, I did okay. Because I was basically like a stick of dynamite.
Easy. I just had my physical this week. 5'5". That's all I came to. So easy on the midget.
Welcome to the club.
I was 4'11" when I went into high school, man. Like, holy. Like, imagine a 4'11" kid running around at 120 pounds. Like, what? I mean, anyway.
You didn't think about it.
I didn't think about it. I mean, that's all I wanted to do. But in any event, I think that was it. I was so tiny, but I just over the top for football. It just seemed that the only way that I prepared was, I was like literally I was schizophrenic. I was just the frothing at the mouth. Like it was so, I think it was extremely uncomfortable for the teammates because I was so revved up, right? Like I just didn't care about anything. I just wanted to play.
But for games of controlled violence like football,
I mean it's helpful.
You got to have that.
Yeah, no, it's helpful. But I mean, but then you think back about how inefficient the energy I was spending in some of the ramping up and all that kind of stuff, and also then.
But it could have been a cycle for you too, though, because when you're younger, your body can handle that stress probably a lot differently than as you mature. Once again, there's that baton being passed. And then you've learned how to kind of master that and harness that energy.
Yeah, go 110% for 90 minutes right? now.
Yeah.
You need it
No,
now.
no, it's exactly. I think, but you go back to the team thing. I think the difference, though, is as you get older, you look back. If you're an individual sport, particularly if you're like fighting or wrestling or something really physical, perhaps that's like super cool because it just translates A to B. But as a team, when you have to work with other people, I think it can be disruptive. And particularly, I got in a position where I was, a leader on the football team at times. And so then the way I get ramped up is not the way most people get ramped up. So then I'm sitting and I'm behaving a certain way and expecting others. And so it's causing, not alignment and more like fear and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, it's just like I've had an evolution. Like I'm much more, like you said, just regulated now. Like you just controlled fury, I suppose, under the surface, so that when you need to pull it, partly because you're older and you can't just have it running all the time.
For
right?
sure you can't.
I can't. No, you can't. So you have to channel it when it comes out.
Yeah.
So those types of things. But when I think a funny story was, and I just saw it, just coincidentally on my Instagram, because I get the rugby feeds because my son Walter is now playing. So I started watching a lot of that again, and I saw a professional rugby player, and he had his forearms were taped up, and he had written "smash" like marker on it. Oh, okay, whatever. And I remember when I was in Singapore and I was playing, and I was just so amped up going into these games. I'm like, it was just bananas. And I had written, what did I write? I wrote something. It wasn't even on tape. I wrote it on my arm, and I can't remember what I like number 3 or something like this, and it was because it was a formation that we were supposed to do, but it was like this really kind of fearsome way to approach it. I remember the referee or something, he looked at my arm and he goes, "You forget what number you are," or something? Because like in rugby you have a number, right? And my number's always been 3.
Okay.
So he's like, "Dude, like you don't know what number you are? Like you're number 3." But anyway, it's just I was going that far in the preparation that I'm writing stuff down that I'm like somehow going to draw inspiration while I'm playing, that I've got this number. Like it was almost like a war paint process. Yeah. And I was 29, like I wasn't a kid, and I still went into that rabbit hole. So yeah, I mean, I think I've evolved, so I'm proud of the evolution. I don't know if I could have done it any different. I remember people like yourself and other mentors that would have showed up and like that would have had influence, right? Certain coaches that had said things that kind of got me thinking a little bit different, or different articles or whatever. And then the one thing I was going to ask you guys about is I've never been superstitious. Okay, now I'll say that with one tiny caveat. Sometimes I'll go to pick up like socks or something, or before a game, or even during the day or something, right? And I was like, I don't know if I want to. If I pick that sock up something, so I switch, right? Like not very often, but I just somehow like maybe I shouldn't do this. So I never had any superstitions. Like I could literally put my clothes on differently. I could wear a different gotch. I could, whatever. I genuinely enjoyed having a process to build up to an athletic thing, even at the gym, right?
Yeah.
But also I did really, really respect, and I still do today, the guys, it sounds a little bit like you in a way, but like guys that seemingly can just be casually chatting and going about and just kind of slowly building, and then they flip a switch like just before, and then all of a sudden there's this controlled rage or expression, and then it's off again.
Yeah.
And I find it super efficient. Like I think that is such an unbelievable mastery. It seems to be of the mind. I think personalities play a role in that. But and then where I was going, that was, I think that those guys, and maybe I'm not totally correct, but I often wonder about the guys that are so superstitious. So apparently Sidney Crosby, for example, and everyone knows who he is, but those that live in non-hockey country places, I mean, he's arguably the greatest hockey player of all time, but apparently his superstitions are off the chart. Like, like stuff that's really OCD.
I was going to say OCD.
Yeah, I mean, no, it is, right? And so then I think to myself, he's obviously had an amazing career. He can perform at a high level. But I also question, like, what happens in real life
if he can't make that happen.
Yeah, if it can't happen, right?
And he probably had a high level of control over whatever his superstitions or compulsive disorder.
Yeah, you because
he's that level.
You're like, that guy. You direct it.
It's like having the rider in when you're a musician or whatever. I want just fucking green M&Ms, and they give it to you. Well, what happens when you don't get it?
Yeah. So I didn't.
But I think that is a little bit more of reaching, once again, that ego thing, reaching a certain level of proficiency, and then saying, "What if I asked for those green M&Ms? Are they going to give it to me?" And then they do, and you're like, "Damn, what else can I ask for?"
I think there's some legitimate OCD.
Do you know what I mean? But I think that is a part of that's a part of the vicious cycle. I think sometimes that's why so many, I've seen it, lots of fighters that after they stop fighting, that they just spiral into it down, because everything that got them everything that they wanted is now gone. Mm-hmm. And now it's gone down. I just watched that great documentary last night on Ricky Hatton.
Yeah.
Great documentary, and a lot of stuff I didn't know. And he's talking about how miserable and how terrible. The guy only lost 3 fights or something in his entire career. Like, to be 47 wins and have only 3 losses. I'm like, and be a world champion? I mean, people could, millions wish they could even, like, touch the carpet that you walked on, you know, in that sport.
So you lifted, but you lifted 550.
Yeah.
Where were you? So this is not ignoring you and change the subject, but there was something in your head says I can do 560 in the next competition. Like he's the guy. He can't turn it on.
Well, I mean, your point is you
didn't know you could do 550. You hit 550. It's got to pop in your head.
Ask for the green M&Ms.
Where the fuck can I go? Yeah. Can I get to 560? Ricky Hatton probably was like, at one time was like, I wonder if I can do one MMA fight, and then I wonder if I can be the champion, and then how many times can I defend it, and then you know what I mean, and then eventually, I wonder if I can do a pro MMA fight turned into I lost 6% of my fights.
Yeah, but he thinks about that.
Fucking
That's
crushed
what
him.
him.
Yeah.
Well, like, that was the thing. I think
he raised the bar. He never achieved the bar because we raised the bar.
Well,
every time we do something.
I think he did. Like that's the thing. It's so psychologically boggling to me, because it's like he was the champion in his weight class. He beat the guy that no one could beat, Costa Tszyu. Obviously, this is boxing for people that don't know who Ricky Hatton is. He beat Costa Tszyu. No, that's okay. He beat Costa Tszyu. Then he's like, okay, well, what's the next biggest fight? I'd like to fight in America. Oh, Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. And he's a weight class and a half up. I'll move up and I'll fight Mayweather Jr. First time he fights me, he loses me, gets knocked out. Or TKO, stops him. Then it's like, okay, well, I got to get myself back in there. Who am I going to go to? Well, there's another guy up at that other weight class. Oh, Manny Pacquiao. We'll try him out. He got put out harder than he's ever been put out before against Manny. But it was because he was pushing his ego, and I think the paycheck was pushing him to fight these big names, because it was a big ethnic thing, right? When he came to the U.S., he's bringing all the UK. I think they said it was the first time they had over 35,000 people in
He was
Las
McGregor
Vegas.
Before McGregor.
Yeah.
But guys like that want to win, regardless.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of the money. But it doesn't help. It's the green M&M thing a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that was, and then when that all went away, like his drug habits and everything is pretty It's amazing, like, that he's even alive
So
today.
if you go back to where you were at the beginning of all that, which was the people that have this ability because they're successful, right? That they're starting to create structure around them that they can basically dictate what they need, right? And then they're successful and it perpetuates, and then they kind of dominate even more or whatever. Then what happens when they ultimately lose or something falls apart, they don't have the structure around them, and it seems like as a person, the whole thing crumbles.
Absolutely.
And that's, so back to where we were talking about, my thing that I kind of realize is I have so much respect for people where the crumbling doesn't happen. Okay, so an example would be, you're wearing, for those who can't see it, but Troy's wearing an All Blacks t-shirt. Okay, so I think people would say now the greatest All Black to ever play is Richie McCaw.
Saw him play.
Right? So John's seen him play. So, he retired a couple of years ago. And what I think about, those that have never seen Chasing Great as a documentary, have you seen it now?
Yeah.
That's a guy that is taking all the things we've talked about to the highest level of preparation, mental and all that. And then he's no longer the greatest rugby player of the world. And the stuff that I've seen since he left the game at that position, he still is that guy.
Yeah.
I have more that blows my mind because he's like an old guard athletic guy. He's younger, but you see when he was in that documentary, he was on for it from like the day he was born. He was writing, I think in the documentary, he wrote down he was going to be the greatest of all time at early 12, 13 or something like that.
But that's a totally, I think that whole All Black culture, I think every kid, it's like Canadians wanting to be the next Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
Those kids, like, I mean, there's so much, and they're like, to have a ritual and like those team rituals and that culture and the depth that they have, who wouldn't want to be a part of that? So I think I bet you there's 1,000 kids that wrote the same things down that he did. It's just out of 1,000, he was the one that actually rose and took the path, right? Because he had that mental focus, that drive, that, where he couldn't turn it off when parents said, "Hey, come inside. It's time to, is like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna just keep going."
So then let's take that, because there's an interesting contrast, right? I mean, a lot of people, because we're based in Canada and Saskatchewan, would say like hockey is our kind of rugby, right?
It's our religion.
Our religion. I mean, we say that, but really, is it? Is it really? When you compare it to the way rugby's treated in New Zealand, I don't think hockey is. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, and where I'm going with this is, Troy and I've talked about this, but there are some books that are and documentaries that are really fascinating about the culture, traditions, and then ultimately the responsibility. Like that's where I think it's different. Is with the All Blacks and that concept of being the best in rugby in New Zealand, you may be wired that you can't turn it off. You may have the skills, the mental process, all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, to reach at that level, most people say they want to, but they don't want the responsibility that comes with being part of that culture, because it's so heavy. Whereas in the hockey thing in Canada now, lots of our young people, Walter was one of them, I want to be playing for Team Canada. That doesn't equate to the same level of accountability and responsibility as a human being as saying you want to be an All Black.
Yeah.
Like there's a nuance there, and I'm curious.
I think it's because of the social culture, like the literal culture in the blood of the people that are there. Whether you are Maori or not Maori, most people now, when they live in New Zealand, have adopted those traditions and those kind of
national pride in one thing that everybody agrees on.
Everyone kind of comes together,
But it's broken down. Like I agree, it forms national pride, but like maybe just and you've been there, right? So, but like where it's back to what we're talking about is to have a guy like Richie McCaw who's not Maori, ultimately represent all the values, all the tradition, all the rituals, all the processes, like at the ultimate level, and still carry that on as a human being. That's something that is getting cultivated in like micro steps all the way, every day, every step, right? Like, and it's kind of what we're talking about here is somebody who's taking it on not for money, not like it's just not even just for national pride. It's because he believed, from my perspective, that this was literally the way to live. Yeah. Which is crazy, actually. Yeah. Crazy deep for me.
Yeah. It's a country of 4 million people, and they produce the best players in the entire world. You know, Canada's about 40 million, America's about 400 million. Best rugby team is New Zealand.
Yeah. I'm sure it's been studied and will continue to be studied how such a small group can.
Well, it's in that book, Legacy.
Yeah, I've got the book still. I started it and then I got sidetracked in another.
That's why he wrote it, because he wanted to.
I think too a big part of it is the cultures, but the support. Like I always say this: it takes a tribe to make an athlete. It takes a tribe to make a good person. And I think when I say that, I agree. But I think in New Zealand and with the All Blacks and that whole culture, they were so far ahead of the game that it was always about the tribe driving the process, right? Because they could input their belief system, they could input their expectations, they could input respect and honor and how you play the game, and you could do all that. And if you want to be a part of that, you have to you have to go with that path, because you're not going to survive on the team. Yeah. Like I said, there's a guy looking at your spot the whole time. And on those they're so deep in talent that it's not just one guy that potentially could take your spot. There's like 4 guys, and then there's those rookies coming up on that other thing that everybody's talking about. Yeah. You know, and I've kind of this year I've been more like looking at how they kind of do their process and they bring, and I didn't really realize how much competition there was. And I mean, it's really hard because I think for those guys, they have so much camaraderie, you know. But it would be like, we could be best friends, but you're not taking my spot. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I will carry the load for that spot. Right? But the cool thing is that the others, they support them. Because they're there every practice, they're there pushing, but probably in the back of their head, you know, they're like, I'm going to put it on because, there's 3 other guys, and if you get injured, I want to be that guy that gets called in.
A certain amount of healthy competition is good for the team.
I think competition anywhere is healthy for anybody, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, you just get stagnant and dead in the water. But now, with that being said, and we're talking about the team, and rituals, did your team have rituals as a team when you guys would come into competition and come into play? Because that would be something that would be unique for me to understand, because like I said,
bus ride.
I play high school football, but our ritual was everyone, let's drink a bunch of Red Bulls and then have our stomach feel like we're going to puke by the time we get to halftime, and then we all just got beat down like worst football team I think in the city, like multiple years in a row. Like it's just rough. But I think if you have a culture, a system, like where you came from, did you find that you had that with your team opposed to just yourself?
Yeah, I know. Then this is like I'm trying to think here. I did mostly team sports. I wrestled for a year, and then obviously bodybuilding is very individual, but mostly it was team sports. So hockey first, then football, and then I guess rugby. And so then
like that Singapore team, would you guys have anything that you guys did?
Yeah. But I'm thinking, but my first exposure to process and all that actually was when I was in high school. And this comes back to who were the teachers at that time and the coaches. Mm-hmm. And we were a pretty good team, and they would pull us into a classroom before you got on the bus, and they would put some things on the chalkboard. Actually started in the locker room. Some coach would handwrite a saying and posted on a post-it note on every locker room, and that was then like kind of a mantra for all of us to get on the same page to start. And then there was a selection amongst the captains about what music was going to, like, no one's arguing about the music. It was like, this was AC/DC, obviously, it was winning a lot.
Thunderstruck.
Who made who and all that. And then we would come up, and this is at Walter Murray, and we would come up, and then we'd go and sit in this classroom. And there really wasn't much said at that point because everything had been processed in terms of strategy. And then the coaches, this was kind of, but do you remember the movie Midnight Run? Mm-hmm. And there that song, ding, 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 ding. Somebody had put the cassette player, and they'd click that thing on, and we were sitting in our full gear with our helmets off, with Midnight Run playing, the theme song, and coaches would leave, and we'd have a couple of minutes of quiet time. And then we would walk out with all our cleats and get on the bus. And then we weren't supposed to talk on the bus. Yeah. And then you would break and go. So that was my first exposure to like team structure, where there was like an attempt to prepare. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah.
So then you got into, it was kind of neat. Then you went to rugby. And rugby in Saskatchewan at that time when I started wasn't as structured as football.
Yeah.
So I was even more amazed in a way because I was coming back into a physical contact sport in my early 20s. So I was young, but there were men now, like 30-year-olds and stuff. And I'm like, geez, these are men. Like, these are strong guys.
Yeah.
And then that's where I got this kind of exposure to the guys that could sit there and they'd be fucking around and maybe they have a dart or something, but like sitting on the sideline at AVU, right? And like no preparation, no real getting together, no strategy. And then put on like the Zengushu hot stuff, and like that thing smells, and somehow it's healing and whatever. And then, but these guys would go from this like band of bandits, right? And then go onto the pitch, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there'd be Superman. And so, right, like, so it got me thinking about the captains and the leaders on that team that were older than me.
Yeah.
That how they got themselves to a point where their behaviors beforehand were different than what I'd seen as a young person, and they could go and perform and lead in such a vicious sport, right? Like where everything's on the line, and their command of direction and calmness. And these are the same guys that were like literally sitting around scratching balls before the game and just hanging around doing nothing. Yeah. And so I just thought that for me it was a cool contrast to see very, very structured ramping up.
Yeah.
In football for 4 years as a team, and then go and play, maybe because men are more mature at that point, maybe you don't have to do that. Having said that, then I left rugby in Saskatchewan and went to Singapore, and then I ran into real rugby guys.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking Saskatchewan, what I'm saying is rugby country.
It's like playing hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was going to say, though, you have to think about it too. Those guys were able to excel against another team that was also maybe in the same league.
Yeah.
But I think if you took that group of guys and went over to the same league in Tonga or Samoa or whatever, like those guys would have been just obliterated because there's a higher level of
like Murphy said, like the hockey thing. But what I would say, I know everyone likes to talk about what it was when they were younger. I will say, in hindsight, that group that I got exposed to, so I think I'm factual on this because I've talked to a lot of people. This is 30 years ago now. This is in the 90s. And a lot of people do say in Saskatchewan rugby, that crop of men that were amongst the province at that point, they were competitive at a national and they were really, really good for what they could do. And so had they been given the resources in these other countries, these guys would have done well.
Yeah, like they would have had the structure.
Yeah, they would have. Okay, they wouldn't have been top, but they were that good. So I was lucky because in hindsight, I realize now I got brought into that sport when I had great mentorship, like just incredible. So then when I went to a place in Singapore and ran into guys that played rugby growing up in the environments we described, that was another level of preparation because then I saw what they were doing and how they got ready, how they practiced, how they talked about it, and like my upbringing in rugby at that point had been kind of some version of ice hockey and fighting and some tackling, rugby, or like football. It was a mashup of like kind of physicality.
Yeah.
And these guys were way more cerebral from all these other countries, and yet super physical and super like on point.
Yeah.
So it got me to kind of elevate again in a different, or evolve in another way, where it's like, okay, I have to be more thoughtful. This isn't all about just listening to heavy, hard music, getting pumped up, right? Like you have controlled fury and technique and strategy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So so anyway, the question on the routine was, in Singapore, the first year I arrived, the club that I was joining was, didn't play in the finals, but was trying to be one of the top teams. So a bunch of us seemed to arrive that year at the end, and we played a little bit, and they fell short.
Was it a mix of guys, UK and?
Yeah, like South Africa, UK, New Zealand, Australia. Like, it was super cool, and there was actually surprisingly some Canadians from Saskatoon. We were there. But anyway, we made a commitment in the off season. So this is maybe to your point. That off season, some of us from the Canadian side, from the structure side of professional sports, we had this big meeting in a pub, and said, like, some of us are not here to drink only socially. We're not going to play rugby in our late 20s when we have professional careers and risk getting hurt to be on the piss. Like, we can be on the piss if we want to, like, separately. We're not going to drink. We're not going to play rugby so we can drink. So everyone here that's here now, we have to decide, are we here to play rugby and then we drink after because we were successful? Otherwise, if we're just drinking, there'll be a bunch of us who are not going to play. So we had this kind of come to Jesus meeting, and it was mostly the North American guys who were kind of saying, like, let's get some fucking professional structure around this. You guys know what to do, but let's, as a team, let's not have a piss up social thing. So this is kind of the point. That off season, we brought kind of the hockey machine or this football machine for training in off season. And all the guys from the UK and everyone else, they had played rugby a lot, but they had never experienced really the discipline of North American sports. You know, get like that kind of off-season training, right?
Yeah.
And so then it was the North American guys. We ran that.
Nice.
The gym, the fitness, the practice, like all the stuff to get us ready. We got shirts that said, like, this is how you, like, the eagle thing. So when we went out in public, it's like Bucks Rugby on the back front, logo on the back. This is how you, so people were walking around like, holy fuck, these guys are the right. And so we were putting out this aura that we were coming for the title the next year, and the word got out that this crop had arrived, and we were on for it. And sure enough, the next year we went undefeated. We lost, but it made a difference, and it was kind of cool to see all the cultures wrestling with this, because there were a lot of guys that were used to at that point being good rugby players technically, but they didn't keep themselves fit. So whereas the North American guys, we were fit, but we didn't know how to play rugby. So we meshed, and everyone kind of worked it out. We all came together, like you said, for the team or the national unity, and we fucking put it on people. It was probably my most favorite year of playing the 10 years there.
That's cool.
Because we kind of a whole bunch of cultures, and everyone just went for it and said, okay, well, we'll follow some structure, and then everyone brought the technique. Anyway, and then to your point, on that mental preparation, a couple coaches came in, and then they started to break us apart and talk to us and ask us to write down our accountabilities.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, really probe us out.
Yeah.
So it was cool. And that for me in my life, I was 28. Yeah. And it probably arrived at the right time, because it helped me be more mature for the professional job I had over there. So I look back at that and I think,
well, we definitely highlight. Like, I mean, I know you kept reiterating that you guys didn't win, but you still made it to the final.
Yeah,
and you just lost the final. But
yeah, we were right there.
If the team did not do all that preemptive work and didn't go through that process, you wouldn't have made it there anyhow. No. So that was more of a victory in itself. I mean, that would have been great to have that, cherry on top. But that was even more of a victory.
The process was correct. Like, you proved it correct.
Yeah.
But at that meeting in the pub,
yeah,
was the beginning and the formation of the process.
Yeah.
Win or lose, it was correct.
Yeah.
It was proven correct.
But that goes back to what we talked about earlier. Like, I think even though we're all hardwired for this, somewhere along the line we've run into a person or an experience that has helped shape right? Maybe in the next 5 years, a decade, or multiple decades of our lives, and I think we've maybe done that with other people. And I think that that's the most super cool part about all this is like, how do you identify the moment the way you did with Blair, right? Yeah. You talk often about your mentors that got you going. And, you know, it could be like a one conversation. Like that night was one night in the pub. Like I remember standing in this
and you
Irish
don't know
pub.
when they're going to happen. That's the fucking cool thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just one guy saying one thing. And you're like, fuck. And he doesn't even know he did it. He doesn't know he mentored you. And you guys had a whole night of it. But I've had just somebody make a comment. And you're like, fuck. I never thought of that. Your thing owning the ring gave me goosebumps. Say, this is mine. And that can be applied to so many fucking things.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, I had to. Like,
simple.
Me,
and
yeah.
whatever, like.
But that was me, how I gave Blair that persona. That was me. And that was my alter. Because, unlike, unfortunately, I know how you were saying, like, everyone thought you were cocky and an asshole. And I don't know. I don't think I usually come off like that at all.
No,
I've hung out with you, man. You're one of the most humble killers in the bar.
But I think that was my crutch a little bit, because then when I would get onto the mat, I would be that humble guy. So I had to change and almost create a persona for myself that I was like, no, like I have all this stuff to live up to. Like I have my dad's reputation, my family, all this stuff. Like, and it's just like, no, I've got to be someone different.
Yeah.
And then when I'd get in there, I would. Like, I mean, I didn't really, because I would still, like when I had success against some of my seniors, I still had the utmost respect for them. But I definitely competed against a lot of guys that I knew how to get into their head, and I was figuring out how to get into their head. And you know, you do a really like catch the guy with some really hard kick, and then it's like, you know, you got the point, and you just kind of stand there and just stop right in front of them.
You stop and almost put your guard down.
Yeah, and I just put my hands down. I'd be just like, I got you. And it would be like, they'd get mad, they'd push me, the referees are giving them shit, and I'm like, okay, now I have them. And then the rest of the match would go really good. And that was just that kind of that little, but then it would be like, okay, everything's over, and then it'd be like, okay, no, I can be myself again.
So, but how do you remember the moment where you decided to come up with this alter ego, or how did you get there?
Like I said, I think I felt like I had a responsibility. Like it was like.
Was there a conversation with your dad?
I still to this day, like, I mean, I can't sit anywhere or go, Dwight Scheer's your dad?
Yes.
I remember this one time. Yeah. Like, it's like, he's
a legend.
I'm dealing like with a giant all the time, right? Like so it's like, geez, I've got to at least put my foot in the door and make an attempt at trying to, improve where I'm at. Because like I said, I would say up until that time, I was kind of like that gym fighter. Like I did great at the school, but getting out into, it's more so like when I got into the black belt division and stuff that I felt like, geez, okay, now I'm just in a sea of sharks, right? And
I don't, not to keep jumping in on your stuff, but I was kind of there for some of that, right? I was behind him in belts by a couple years, maybe 3, I think, maybe 4, 3 or 4 years, and a few years, obviously they were a few years apart, but that group of guys, like, you can't understate the group when you and I went in to get our black belts to spar were some of the fucking, they were killers. Like they were, like Brian Parks was still at his peak. Yeah. Lyle was fucking the midget acrobat, like just unbelievable. And there's too many guys to name. Yeah. Dwayne Stewart was like just murder in the point fighting arena, and those are just guys from our school, pretty much. Brian and Lyle from, but it's like just in our school had guys.
Yeah, we had there was so much depth there, and it was just like. And even think of some of those instructors like Roy Regala, and then there were so many like good fighters that it was just like, yeah, they were great. You could absorb and learn everything from, but it's kind of like if I'm sparring with someone and I've taught you everything you know, well, it's pretty easy for me to see it coming, right?
Yeah, but that's so then
that's where I had to reinvent the wheel for myself, because it's like I'm getting timed. They've seen me do it how many times, so that's where I had to change the style. I started literally fighting with my hands down. I changed my stance. I started fighting as a southpaw. I did all these things that were totally opposite of what I normally would do. And kind of that first tournament that I hit with that, I won grand championship. And beating some of the people that I've definitely looked up to as far as being the top dogs, being like Dwayne and Al and these guys. And it was just like, that was like an on point. And that was just like the switch that changed everything for me. Because then it was like, that works. So then it was like slowly just building this. But then, like I said, I definitely, when I was done, that, I guess that aggressive side or that portion of me, I knew it just turned off. And then I'd just be my happy-go-lucky self. Like, I'm usually very quiet, right? Like, I mean, I'm comfortable here and talking and so forth with other people.
One of the stoics.
Most people would say I'm sitting in a room. I'm more of an observer. I like to people watch, and I like to see how people interact. Judge.
The quiet guys, you
judge
gotta be
people.
The quiet guys are judging everyone. You know what I'm thinking.
But that's just the way it was. Like, that's how I found. Like, but what I was going to ask is, because we haven't really talked about this, and to me, all the things that we've done are challenging, but I think jumping out of a perfectly good airplane for no God-fearing apparent reason, like it's not going down, like there has to be a ritual or a process. Like, I mean, even just wrapping your chute, or did you find that was like, okay, satisfying that, okay, I did it, I know it's good, I feel safety in this.
Well, having your gear, trusting your gear was one thing.
Well, just go through that, but like maybe just, because that's a really good question. Like the first time you go out by yourself, as you said on a previous podcast, like there's no halfway to skydive.
No, you can't.
So how did you get yourself?
You can't practice it. It's one of those things where like mental rehearsal. Like that's one of the biggest things in sport is this. Like, and it's hard when you have an opponent, but you can still envision the win and stuff like that. And I think that goes a long way mentally. And some people just don't do that. Like you said, whether it's a team, you can envision you carrying a try through or blocking whatever it is, tackling a scrum half in the case of the flanker, whatever. Not to get too specific, but so. Not my first skydive, notwithstanding. It's like, so what happens in skydiving, you learn how to survive. So you go out, an instructor deploys your parachute for you or your tandem, and then guys in some cases hang on to you while you get stable. Then it's one guy, they let go of you, and you kind of go through the process of learning to save yourself. And then you get signed off to go solo. And then it's a long time. Then you go through, you have to do a bunch of stuff in front of an instructor, and then you can jump in the air with other people. And there's licenses that allow, like a license holder can't jump with another A license holder, you can jump with a B. So you get through. So once we get past all that, so there's obviously some anxiety because it's scary jumping on an airplane. But
I think you're overstating, or understating, sorry. Because I think Troy's correct. You're understating even the first step, like, anyone can sign up for a tandem jump, right? Like I don't.
Yeah, tandem skydive. I've never done a tandem.
Yeah,
but I don't know how many at this table would really want to do it. So the point is,
well, you talk about legacy though. As my dad was a Canadian champion skydiver in the '60s and '70s.
So this is where
it was some old shitty gear. He had 864 skydives from 1968.
So did you go out and watch him jump?
No, because he quit when I was born because it was fucking dangerous, and he figured he was going to die doing it. So in the '75 or '76, he did his last jump, and then in 1994. September 4th, which is how I remember my son's birthday, my first skydive. My son was born on September 4th of 2018. But September 4th, 1994, Everett Bedard, who's currently my mentor in cycling, everyone thinks my dad got me into skydiving. My dad was golfing. He was a 2 handicap at Riverside. He golfed 3 or 4 games a week. He had a golf game this Saturday morning that I guess before that Everett comes to me, and he had jumped earlier in the summer, and he said, I signed you up for a first jump course. You're coming September 4th.
Is that the tandem one?
No, I never did a tandem. So this was a small. You climb out on the wing, you hang, you do a 6-hour ground school, and then you climb out, hang from the wing, and let go, and an instructor deploys your parachute. He's hanging onto your
if
parachute.
That doesn't cause doubt in your brain. A 6-hour Like,
Well,
someone's
because-
talking to me for 6 hours telling me how if I don't pull the
No, because
right
if you
time,
don't,
I'm
no,
gonna die. I mean, I'd be just like,
you need to have
What?
We know when you're scared and shit hits the fan, we revert to, you might not be thinking. So they make us practice the emergency procedures of your main parachute, the 1 in 1,000 chance that your main is not going to function correctly, that you release your main and deploy your reserve. Now there's safety mechanisms built into all this shit. It's in students' gear. As soon as you release your parachute, there's a thing that pulls, you fall away from your main parachute. There's a line that automatically, like this is almost redundant, it'll deploy your reserve. There's a thing that if no chute opens and you're falling too fast, too low, it's called an automatic activation device. It fires your reserve.
But okay,
There's all that stuff, but they put you through it all. You go through that, but because you guys are asking me the learning to get over the fear of falling.
I know the only reason I'm interrupting is because we're gonna run out of time here. Come up, but what I want to, on your point, like to what Troy said, 6 hours to prepare for the first time to hang under a flying plane. Like that's not a normal thing. Like just mentally. To say I'm going to spend 6 hours and pay money to get ready to go and hang under a plane, like nobody.
But so I guess I felt a bit of pressure because my dad had done it, and my mom definitely. He was like, "I'm going golfing. I'm not coming to watch you." He didn't participate in a lot of my shit. I don't know. He did watch my first MMA fight, but anyhow, my mom's like, "Dale, you're going to fucking watch." So he canceled his golf game and he.
So he was there for your training.
Yeah.
Well, so there's some pressure.
He came. Well, no, he did no training. So, because I do the 6 hours, 4 hours on the Friday night and 2 hours in the morning on Saturday. He shows up Saturday. I go and do a skydive.
Well, he's come to watch you.
He's coming to watch, and I do a skydive, and frankly, I fucking hated it. It was sick and nauseous.
Yeah,
and
this is what Troy's getting at.
It was terrifying.
Yeah.
And then my dad, the instructor's like, "Well, when did you jump last?" He's like, 76. Here, we're just going to take you right up all the way. Here's how this works, and we'll hang on to you, it's called accelerated free fall. Progressive free fall in Canada. 2 guys hold on to you. He practiced deploying. And then, so Dad did that. I was like, well, fuck, Dad went. And he's like, that was great. I'm going to go again. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go again. And then the second time I loved it. And then I did 3 the first day. He did 3 the first day. Golf 1 more game.
Well, okay.
Never golfed again.
But I did, because
me and him did 1,000 skydives together.
Right. So there is this connection that kind of brings it back to the end of this conversation is the 2 of you had really significant dads in your lives related to your 2 kind of passionate athletics, like skydiving initially maybe for you.
And competitive shooting in my dad's case.
Okay,
He's
so
world champion.
So I didn't really understand that until today. The first time that you're going to jump out of a plane or hang from a plane, your dad, who's like a master at this, is standing there watching you, and he's supposed to be golfing.
Yeah,
so he's standing there, and he's like, "Are you like?" And so, what are you going to do as a young person? Say, "I'm not going to do that." Like, you're going to not. He's like,
that wasn't an option. That probably wasn't an option just for who I was, but it was an option with him for sure. But the thing is, I landed. Had he not been there, here's a good one. I never told him, but had he not been there, I might not have done the second jump.
Yeah,
because he did his when he came down.
In there, it was a Spartan moment. It was like, come back on with your shield or on.
Yeah, right, yeah. And he's like, okay, let's go.
So you whether your dad ever said that directly to you, but you felt it, right? It's like
I felt the pressure, but like I said, he never ever worded it.
Yeah,
I think it was pressure I put on myself, and pressure that I think I identified just by how everyone else around treated my dad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like he was like in a pedestal and very high thought of, and granted, amazing person. So that was me, I think, putting the pressure on myself. He would never be like, half the time when I competed when I was younger, he didn't even want to see me compete because he'd be off reffing at some other ring. And I rarely ever had him in the same ring that I was ever at. It wasn't until I got to the black belt division that now he would be sometimes a corner referee or something like that. Or when I would compete, he would step off and he wouldn't be an official, right? Unless they needed somebody for that official because he's just a senior ranking person, right? So,
because we have less than a minute, and I don't want to get us cut off here, but just quickly tie it together. All this stuff today, you talk about rituals, superstitions, culture, process, all this kind of stuff. Those things are part of the puzzle, but unless you're surrounded by examples, mentorship, right?
Yeah.
That crystallizes it, and then in pioneering cases like yours, John, where you're on your own, all these things end up where you're doing it because it's the right thing, right? And it clicks it all together. Yeah. Because otherwise it gets broken down and it kind of gets you in a state of anxiety. But we've got like literally seconds to go. So that was pretty awesome, and thanks for joining us.